Hi everybody, how you doing? A couple weeks ago we were talking about freedom of religion, and we're going to do another segment on our First Amendment. The beginning we've covered: Congress shall pass no law respecting an establishment of religion or the free practice thereof. But it goes on and it says, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the rights of the people to peacefully assemble or petition the government for a redress of grievances. So, the First Amendment is really the cornerstone of the Republic. First of all, you've got a right to practice God and to worship the way you want. And next, you've got a right to say whatever you want. So, what are we talking about here is the idea that you can say whatever you want. You can criticize your government without the threat of imprisonment. You can speak, you can make speeches in a public setting if you choose. You have a right to print what you want under the freedom of the press. And that's really what our media holds on to, is the free speech and freedom of press. And the people have a right to gather amongst themselves, to rally, to petition the government for change or for a redress of grievances. It doesn't mean that you have a right to riot. You don't have the right to slander others. You don't even have a right to yell fire in a crowded theater, because what would happen? That people will be trampled to death. So you have a right to speak what you want, no matter how repulsive it may be. That's why we allowed the Nazi Party to march through Skokie, a suburb of Chicago, some years back. Freedom of speech is not to say what's popular. It's to say what may repulse you, what other people don't want to hear. You don't have a right to shout people down in a university and deny others the right to free speech. You don't have a, really shouldn't even be banning books, burning books. The only thing that happens when you ban books is you make other people want to see whatever it is you're banning. Because they're like, wow, somebody's banning something. I want to see what they're talking about. And so it has the opposite effect. Instead of limiting free speech, what we need to do is accelerate it. We need to put more free speech out there. We need to have a debate, and we need to understand whatever it is we're talking about. But that doesn't mean it should end up with the National Guard called out, riots, buildings being burned, or anything else some people on the fringe would do. Free speech is there to, to protect the country. It's a cornerstone of a democratic republic. And this is a republic. There is nothing more important than that. Being allowed to speak and talk about the issues of the day. I'm reminded way back of our Liberty Bell up here. And I reminded that the House, Pennsylvania House, would ring their bells on July 8th, 1776. And they'd call everybody in for the first reading of the Declaration of Independence. A reading that would tell people what it was and why we were leaving the British Empire, why we had declared our independence. In other words, they're giving free speech to people. We had founders involved in the press, quite a few of them. We had Dickinson writing, we had Franklin writing, we had Hamilton and Jay were writing editorials, Madison was writing. So the importance of the press and of free speech was important to our founders. And the First Amendment tells us why it's important. It tells them that we have a right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So we have a right to change our government the way we see, in a way to protest, to show our elected officials that we want something, that we're serious about what we want. You don't have a right to riot in the course of a protest and damage and destroy goods, but you have a right to peacefully assemble, it says, for the purpose of a redress of grievances. Many times we have protests throughout the country. Sometimes they turn into riots. We have to call the National Guard in. This is something you don't have the right to do. But you do have a right to gather. You have a right to petition the government for change. Throughout our republic, we've had a lot of issues that have divided us. And even today, we're greatly divided. And somehow we have to get together and we have to discuss things. And if we have to discuss things, then we have to be able to be free to talk about what we want so that we can engage our fellow citizens. And that's why free speech and free press are so important. I really hope you understand what we're trying to say here. You can't shut down speech. You can't ban books. You ban books, just more people want to see it. The way to deal with incorrect speech or speech that repulses you isn't to stop it. It's to bring in more speech. It's to get your side to argue and develop your points of arguments, to gain the importance of free speech, to be able to write what you want without being imprisoned for what you say. In England and other countries of the period when our founders were working on things, they could get arrested for what they said. In fact, our second president pushed through a bill, the Alien and Sedition laws, where you could be arrested for what you were saying. Madison and Jefferson wrote up what we call the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, and they tried to do something about it. But this was prior to being able to go to the Supreme Court, because before Marbury versus Madison, we didn't have a judicial review. Free speech and free press and the right to assemble and giving the reasons for the right to assemble is what our founders were trying to embulk in stone in the Constitution. It was the purpose of a Bill of Rights. So I hope you really understand that. And I hope you have a good day. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you. To proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants thereof.